All right, so we start out with virtue ethics with Brad J. Kallenberg, and he talks about the initial defining of it is what is virtue ethics. So he says it is sometimes helpful to think about moral situations as having three logical moments. That's the agents performing actions that result in outcomes, right? So those are your three areas: the agent, the action, and the outcomes. One brand of ethics treats outcomes as the moral important consideration in determining right and wrong. This is probably really popular in the world today. Utilitarianism, whatever the end result is, if it's the best one, that's the one to choose.
So it's a consequentialist ethics, right? So the consequences of the act determines the morally right thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for utilitarianism, it's the consequences kind of for everybody involved, right? So the greatest good for the greatest number is how we often characterize utilitarianism, but it focuses on the consequences of the particular act.
Right. So not whether the situation is right or wrong so much as if the outcome is good or bad. So
Right.
if you want to think of the good trolley problem, saving the three people on the tracks is better than saving the one person. So you pull the lever. However, if that makes you a murderer, maybe the consequences for you would be to not pull the lever. So it depends on the focus on your utility there. Well, then another brand of ethic claims that some actions are right or wrong, regardless of outcomes. What makes for rightness or wrongness in their eyes is the kind of deed an action is. So Kant is a good example of this.
Right. So Kant's categorical imperative focuses on the nature of the act itself, like the characteristic of the act. For him, it's something like, non-contradictory. So if you can hold the act and you can universalize it and it doesn't result in a contradiction, then that is for Kant, or at least in summary anyway, the morally right thing to do. And so it's a focus on the action, the nature of the act, not the consequences. Right? And we usually characterize that as a deontological or duty-based ethics.
Right.
By the way, the other couple of positions here are generally characterized in the deontological camp. Natural law theory and the divine command theory are both focused on the nature of the act, and obviously in a different way than Kant does, but they're also non-consequentialist types of theory.
Right, right. And again, our focus is for this book is to narrow focus from our editor's perspective, and that's to focus on the Christian aspect of the ethics. And then, of course, every kind of ethicist will insist that both action and outcomes are germane to serious ethical analysis. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. If those intentions were good, but the outcome's bad, well, it's going to be hard to make a convincing point to somebody that, I really had really, really good intentions, and all of a sudden half the world's dead. So probably not going to win hearts and minds that way. And so, of course, they're going to have to talk about both sides of the equation here.
Right, right. All right. So you have these three logical moments. The agent performs actions that result in outcomes. Outcomes are consequentialist type. The consequentialist type of ethics focuses on the outcome. Ethics like Kantian ethics focuses on the action, right? And then there's virtue ethics. And he says virtue ethics takes special note of the agent doing the deed. So in the first place, he tells us virtue ethics considers the deed in relation to human excellence, or to the question, what is human life for? And so he's going to spend a lot of time on this particular telos, right? The purpose, goal, what the human life is for. Because that's going to help him to explain virtue ethics for us. He says, in addition to consideration of the human telos, where the Greek word telos names the end or intended purpose of a being or an artifact. In the second place, virtue ethics also seeks what he calls thick descriptions rather than thin ones.
Right. So be prepared to read a lot more. Exactly.